Hi guys, today I want to talk to you about 3 quick things that people don't always think about when choosing a puppy for service work. So I have a whole blog post on this topic, so I'm not going to go over the whole evaluation process because you can find my evaluation process in the blog post that I linked to in this video, in the description of this video. But today I wanted to talk about just a few things that I have found people don't always think about. We tend to know that evaluating puppies is important, but there's a few things that I've kind of noticed, especially recently, that people don't always either know or think about when they go to bring home a service dog puppy. So this is right at the top of my mind right now because I am hopefully, fingers crossed, bringing home a new service dog puppy next week. So hopefully, starting next week, we're gonna have some very cool videos and lives on this page for you guys to see because I'll have my own new little puppy in training. That means that this topic and all things puppy raising is really at the front of my mind because starting next week, I'm gonna be doing these things too. So, like I said, there's kind of an evaluation process for choosing a service dog. You can find my evaluation process in the blog post that I put in the description. But the 3 things that I really wanted to mention quickly for you guys are just a little bit outside of that. Now, the first is that when you choose a puppy, your puppy really needs to stay with its litter for 8 weeks. There are a few exceptions you might make if you're rescuing a puppy, but in general, your puppy really needs to stay with its litter and with its mom for 8 solid weeks. Puppies who are brought home before 8 weeks tend to have a lot more issues of all kinds. So we see separation anxiety, we see fear and aggression issues. As dog trainers, especially when I was working with a lot of pet dogs, but I see this still in service dogs in training, we see a much higher rate of behavioral issues in puppies that were taken from their litters too young. And so I just cannot stress enough how important it is that your service dog in training stay with its litter for 8 weeks. Their litter teaches them things, their mom teaches them things. It's important for physical and emotional and mental health and development that your puppy stay with its litter mate until 8 weeks. Now, a couple days before 8 weeks may not make a huge deal, but if you're bringing home a puppy at 6 weeks or 7 weeks, that's where we start to see this much higher incidence of different behavioral issues pop up later on in the dog's life. Now, along with that, I've had a few separate questions lately, both through personal messages and on Facebook pages, about bringing home 2 puppies at once. So some people, for a variety of reasons, we've had parents who are, bringing home a service dog and training puppy for 1 child, and they're wondering if they can bring a 2nd puppy home to be a pet for the rest of their kids, things like that. Now, 2 puppies at once is not something that I recommend either. We also see all kinds of behavioral issues pop up with that. We see fear, aggression, separation issues. We see one puppy tend to flourish and finish developing, and we see the other puppy kind of get left behind. They can grow up and start to fight with each other. They can grow up and pick fights together. They can grow up and be too attached to each other. And on top of that, it's just a lot of work. Raising 1 service dog puppy is already far more work than you can possibly be imagining if you don't have a puppy yet. And adding another puppy to that is not just twice the work. It is much more than twice the work. Now, the breeder that you get your puppy from also really needs to be doing some kind of socialization. When you have a puppy, you are bringing home the equivalent of like a 4 or 5-year-old child. And you really wouldn't, what could that do to a child's development if all they did was live in their one little bedroom with 2 or 3 toys until they were 5 years old? A puppy is the same, okay? When they're with your breeder and their litter mates for the full 8 weeks, they should be having some type of socialization experience, some type of mental enrichment. Puppy culture is great if you can find a puppy culture breeder, but even if you can't, breeders who are constantly bringing in new things for their puppies to see and new things for their puppies to play with, it's really important that some type of socialization happen before you pick up your 8-week-old puppy. Now, of course, all of these tips that I've just told you, puppies need to stay with their litters for 8 weeks. You should only bring home 1 puppy at a time. Your breeder needs to be socializing the puppies. You can find exceptions to those. You can find examples of people who brought home 2 puppies and it worked out great. Of people who brought a puppy home at 6 weeks old and nothing bad happened. Of people whose breeder did no socialization at all and the puppy turned out fantastic. And I get that. But training a service dog is already hard enough, and so we really want to stack the deck in your favor, right? It's really important that we stack the deck in your favor as much as possible. So you really want to remember puppies need to stay with their litters until 8 weeks, 1 puppy at a time, and make sure that your breeder is doing some kind of socialization. Now, for evaluating your puppy, again, I put the link to that blog post in the description of this video, but the one tip that I'm going to remind you of, because I see this one missing a lot, is please test your puppies for food motivation. Okay, puppies should be hungry. They should be wanting to eat things. They should be interested in food. Training a service dog, again, it's hard enough even if you have a puppy who will do backflips for a piece of kibble. It's still hard enough without choosing a puppy who's too interested in his environment to eat anything. Okay, food motivation is really important. Now, we can train dogs who aren't food motivated, and we can create food motivation in dogs who are lacking in food motivation. And our academy isn't open for registration right now because we're running a lot of updates, but inside my academy, we have lots of resources for our students that go in depth in creating food motivation and working with dogs who are not so food motivated. And that's something that we're going to be talking about in these lives coming up as I bring home my puppy and I'm preserving food motivation and all that kind of stuff. But it really is just easier if you choose a puppy who will do anything for a piece of kibble. Because I have worked with service dogs who are not food motivated, who really, they won't take food in the presence of strangers, they don't eat all their meals, they're really just not all that interested in food. And it can be done. I've done it. But it's just one of those things where if you're looking at 2 puppies and they're both confident and they're both social and they're both doing well on your evaluation test, but one of them isn't interested in food, then you take the puppy who is interested in food. So that's kind of my bonus tip, because I was going to do 3 tips, but then I thought, oh, there's this food motivation thing too that I want to mention, because I think a lot of people kind of forget about that one. We just assume it's a puppy and it will eat, right? But test for that when you go to pick out your puppy. Okay, so that is all that I have for you today. If you want to see how I evaluate puppies, you can see that in the blog post linked in the description of this video. And then everybody keep your fingers crossed for me, because as long as everything works out, the litter that I'm going to look at, they turn 8 weeks next Wednesday. And I will hopefully be bringing home a new puppy, and then we'll have all kinds of fun puppy resources coming out after that. So I will see you guys next week.